Oh! All right, settle down, everyone. So, apparently, this cartoon show I'm on has been predicting the future or something. I don't know how that works since I can barely predict what I'm having for breakfast, but here we are. People keep saying the Simpsons show knew stuff was going to happen before it actually did, and now they're all excited about what might happen by 2026. That's only like, what? Wait, it already started? Time flies when you're eating donuts. Look, I'm not saying I'm a genius or anything. Marge reminds me of that every day. But even a broken clock is right twice a day, and apparently, our show has been that broken clock more times than anyone expected. So, let's talk about some of these predictions that people think might actually come true soon. And before you ask, no, I didn't write any of these episodes. I was probably napping in the sound booth. First up, we got this whole Mars colonization thing. Now, I remember when we did that episode about going to Mars. The year 2026 kept popping up, and everyone was supposed to pack up and move to the Red Planet like it was some kind of vacation resort. In the episode, this company called Exploration Incorporated was gonna send regular folks like you and me to Mars. Well, probably not me. I'd eat all the space food on the way there. Lisa got all excited about it because she's into that science stuff. The rest of us just followed along because, family bonding or whatever. The whole thing fell apart in typical Springfield fashion, which is pretty much how everything goes in our town. But here's the weird part. Back when we made that episode, the idea seemed completely nuts. Now, not so much. There's this guy, Elon Musk, who runs SpaceX, and he keeps talking about getting to Mars before 2030. That's like really soon. They're building these giant rockets that look like something out of a comic book, and apparently they're serious about it. NASA's in on it too, working on all kinds of fancy equipment and life support systems. Even countries that never cared about space before are suddenly launching stuff toward Mars. So, will 2026 actually be the year we start colonizing Mars? Probably not with families signing up through a TV commercial like we showed. But the fact that people are even scheduling real missions and spending actual money on this, that's pretty wild. When we wrote that joke, it was supposed to be ridiculous. Now it's starting to look like a documentary. Who would have thought? Moving on, we got this prediction about a World Cup final between Mexico and Portugal. This one's from way back in 1997 during an episode about football. Well, soccer. Whatever you want to call it. The point is, we showed a commercial hyping up this match between Mexico and Portugal like it was the biggest thing ever, deciding which country was the greatest on earth. At the time, it was a total throwaway joke. Neither of those teams had ever made it to a World Cup final. Mexico always does pretty good, but then chokes when it matters. Portugal had some great players over the years, but they never quite got there either. The closest they came to facing each other in something important was this Confederation Cup match in 2017, which nobody really remembers. But now things are getting interesting. The 2026 World Cup is happening in Mexico, along with the United States and Canada. Mexico is going to have home field advantage, packed stadiums, and a whole bunch of energy from their fans. Portugal keeps producing talented young players who could carry them deep into the tournament. Plus, the World Cup format is expanding, so more teams advance than before. Look, I'm not going to pretend I understand soccer. I barely understand regular football. But World Cups are famous for crazy upsets and weird storylines that nobody sees coming. If there was ever a tournament where a random joke could actually happen, it's this one. Imagine a packed stadium in Mexico City, fans going absolutely insane, and the whole world watching as an old Simpsons gag becomes real. That would be something. Then there's this prediction about the word goodbye disappearing. This one comes from an episode where we jumped into the future and showed Bart and Lisa as adults. In that future, people stop saying goodbye. Instead, Nelson ends his messages with "smell you later," and Bart mentions that phrase completely replaced goodbye. When I first heard about this, I thought it was stupid. But then I started thinking about how fast language actually changes. My kids use words I don't even understand half the time. They're always saying things like riz and yeet and no cap, and I just nod along, pretending I know what's happening. It's exhausting. The thing is, goodbye used to mean God be with ye. It was a religious blessing that turned into a casual farewell over hundreds of years. Most people don't even think about that anymore. So if it changed once, why couldn't it change again into something completely different? Maybe even something dumb and catchy. Look at how fast phrases spread now with the internet and social media. Some kid makes a TikTok and suddenly everyone's repeating the same thing. A few years ago, nobody said bet or sus, and now you hear them everywhere. Younger people already skip goodbye and say later or peace or just send an emoji. If some viral trend creates a new farewell that catches on, goodbye could fade away without anyone really noticing. I'm not saying smell you later will be the replacement. That's probably not going to happen. But the idea that language keeps evolving and something we use every day could just disappear? That's actually pretty believable. By 2026, goodbye might already sound old-fashioned to a bunch of people. Language moves faster than I do after Thanksgiving dinner. Next up, we got this weird prediction about Australia and corporal punishment. This comes from the episode where Bart caused an international incident with Australia over a phone call about toilets. Long story. Anyway, because of the trouble he caused, Bart was supposed to get a boot to the backside as punishment delivered officially in front of a crowd. Obviously, that whole scene was ridiculous. The idea that a government would create some kind of giant shoe machine for legal punishment is pure cartoon logic. But the interesting part isn't the literal joke. It's the question behind it. How do countries deal with young people who break rules, and how far should punishments go? Australia doesn't allow corporal punishment in courts, but parents can still use reasonable force when disciplining their own kids at home. That creates this weird area where something's not okay in one place but fine in another. And all over the world, people constantly argue about youth crime, how to handle it, whether strict punishments help or make things worse. Politicians love bringing up dramatic punishment ideas because it gets people talking. They argue, they get upset, they demand changes, but the debates never really end. By 2026, we'll probably see even more fights about this stuff. Should young offenders go through rehabilitation, tough sentences, community service, educational programs? People can't agree, and they probably never will. The Simpsons didn't predict Australia would actually boot kids. What we did was capture how societies swing between being strict and being compassionate. How justice sometimes becomes a spectacle. The episode took that tendency and cranked it up to 11, but the core issue is still around today. That's what makes it feel relevant, even though the literal prediction is nonsense. Finally, for this first part, we got Big Ben going digital. This one's from an episode where Lisa's an adult visiting England, and when the camera shows London, Big Ben doesn't have its classic clock face anymore. Instead, it's got bright digital numbers blinking like a cheap watch. It looked wrong on purpose because we were making fun of the idea that everything old gets replaced with modern upgrades. The funny thing is, this joke keeps coming back. Over the years, fake news stories claim Big Ben was actually getting a digital screen. Enough people believed it that newspapers had to say it wasn't true. Some folks got mad and said it would ruin the building's history. Others argued that young people can't read analog clocks anymore, so digital would help them. And you know what? They might have a point. Some schools already took analog clocks out of exam rooms because students found them confusing. We're surrounded by digital displays now. Phones, computers, cars, public spaces, everything shows time digitally. So the idea of Big Ben getting updated doesn't sound as crazy as it used to. Would London ever actually do it? Probably not. Big Ben's value is in keeping it original, but cities argue about this stuff all the time. Renovations, lighting changes, accessibility updates, they all spark debates about preserving history versus making things easier to use. People feel torn between keeping landmarks the way they've always been and modernizing them for practical reasons. Big Ben won't switch to glowing numbers anytime soon, But the question it raises matters more every year. How much change will people accept when it comes to famous historical sites? What's more important, tradition or convenience? Those arguments aren't going away. And honestly, I don't have the answer. I can barely set the clock on my VCR, which Marge keeps telling me we don't even have anymore. Number 6 in this batch is about a major environmental disaster. This comes from the Simpsons movie, which I'm still not sure why they made. Didn't we already have enough episodes? Anyway, in the movie, Springfield Lake turns into this toxic mess after years of people dumping garbage and chemicals into it. Officials finally try to clean it up, and then I come along and ruin everything by tossing a silo full of pig waste into the water. Yeah, that was me, not my proudest moment. In my defense, the silo was getting heavy, and the lake was right there. Seemed convenient at the time. Anyway, the pollution gets so bad that the government traps our entire town under a giant dome. The whole thing looks ridiculous, and most people watched it for laughs. But the warning underneath? That part's actually real. Rivers catching fire isn't something from cartoons anymore. It happens. Major coastlines deal with pollution spikes that shut down beaches and kill wildlife. Lakes collapse because of algae blooms, industrial waste, and chemicals that nobody noticed piling up for years. What used to seem like exaggeration from a cartoon now shows up in actual news reports. That's unsettling. Nobody's going to put a dome over a city. That's still crazy. But the fear behind it makes sense. What happens when an environmental problem grows faster than anyone can stop it? Scientists keep saying that once certain limits get crossed, damage can snowball out of control. Pollution spreads faster than cleanup crews can handle it, and that forces officials to make desperate choices. Climate disasters are happening more often now. Heat waves, chemical spills, wildfires, ecosystems falling apart. These things cause way more damage than they used to. The dome in our movie works as a symbol for extreme interventions. Steps that seem strange or over the top but aim to protect people when nothing else works. This year we won't see Springfield-style containment, but the chances of a major environmental event that needs bold action? Much higher than when the movie came out. The detail that makes this prediction feel creepy is how simple the cause was. We didn't use aliens or futuristic technology. We showed plain old negligence. Careless actions building up over time until the damage becomes too big to ignore. Real environmental crises start the same way, slow and unnoticed until everything goes wrong. I try not to think about it too much. Makes me feel guilty about all those times I dumped stuff in the lake before the movie. But ignorance is bliss, right? That's what I keep telling Marge anyway. She doesn't buy it. Moving on to the next one, we got this weird prediction about hidden messages in music. This comes from an episode where Bart joins a boy band called Party Posse. The whole group was manufactured, built on marketing instead of talent. They used technology to hide the fact that none of us could actually sing. Their music video had all the usual stuff. Flashy lights, synchronized dancing, a beat that gets stuck in your head for days. But then there's this part, where voices chant something that sounds like gibberish. Yvonne at Neoj. Lisa, being the smart one in the family, listens closely and figures out it spells join the Navy backwards. Suddenly, the episode goes from making fun of boy bands to commenting on hidden persuasion and how entertainment can mask deeper agendas. The episode exaggerates everything for comedy, but the core idea isn't totally made up. Advertising experts and psychologists debate this stuff all the time. How messaging, rhythms, symbols, and repeated patterns can influence people without them realizing it. Some countries actually ban subliminal techniques in advertisements. Even where it's allowed, people worry about it because it bypasses conscious choice. We took that concern and pushed it to an absurd extreme. A government using boy bands to recruit young people for the military. Strip away the comedy, though, and it echoes real patterns. Music has always been used to inspire, persuade, and shape public mood. Young people especially respond to catchy messaging wrapped in entertainment. Modern technology makes this even more powerful. Songs, trends, and phrases spread worldwide in hours thanks to algorithms and social media. A message doesn't need to be hidden backwards to influence someone. It just needs to be memorable, catchy, and pushed across enough screens. By 2026, with technology advancing faster than regulations can keep up, we'll probably see more conversations about how digital influence works. That's what makes Ivan Itnioj weirdly relevant today. The show wasn't predicting mind control. It was poking fun at our willingness to be guided by entertainment and messaging we barely notice. The phrase became a meme, but the idea behind it feels more familiar every year. We're surrounded by influence hiding inside things we enjoy. Makes you wonder what else is getting into our heads without permission. Then again, I can barely remember what I had for lunch, so maybe I'm safe. Now we're getting into robot territory. This prediction comes from an episode called Itchy and Scratchy Land, where our family visits a theme park filled with robot mascots. Everything seems fine until someone takes a photo with a camera flash. The light hits a robot's sensors wrong, and suddenly its behavior shifts from friendly to aggressive. One glitch spreads to others, and the whole park becomes dangerous with machines that won't follow commands anymore. Back in 1994, this felt like pure fantasy. Robots were slow, clunky things you only saw in factories. The idea of them acting independently or coordinating in any threatening way seemed impossible. But today, the episode hits different. We're surrounded by smart devices making decisions without us noticing. Cars brake automatically. Drones fly pre-programmed routes. Home assistants listen to everything we say and learn from our behavior. Even factory robots adapt to changes instead of just repeating the same motion forever. The fear isn't that robot mascots will chase us through a theme park. It's that we're building machines that learn faster than we expect. When systems become complex, mistakes become unpredictable. A small software glitch can ripple across networks and create failures nobody intended. Experts keep warning that as robots gain more autonomy, strict safeguards are necessary to prevent minor faults from escalating into serious problems. By 2026, robots won't be leading uprisings. That's still science fiction, but they will hold way more responsibility in daily life. Automated delivery units, hospital helpers, home care devices, industrial robots. They'll all operate in busy environments with less human oversight than ever. That's why our old cartoon gag still gets attention. It exaggerates the scenario for laughs, but highlights a legitimate concern. Once machines can act independently, even the smallest design flaw becomes a potential disaster. The episode works as a playful warning about depending too much on technology without clear limits and safety rules. So while a robot takeover isn't happening, machines behaving unpredictably? That's a real challenge developers and policymakers are trying to handle right now. And honestly, it makes me nervous. I can't even program the DVR without Marge's help. How am I supposed to deal with a rogue robot? Next up, we got this political prediction that people won't stop talking about. In a Halloween episode from 2016, I'm walking around dressed as Bender from Futurama. Terrible costume, by the way. I looked ridiculous. During the scene, there's a sticker on my outfit that says Ivanka 2028. It's a tiny detail, easy to miss, but it became one of those weirdly specific political references our show is famous for. We'd already surprised people by hinting that Donald Trump would be president years before it happened, so another Trump-related reference got attention fast. The joke plays on a simple idea. Political families tend to stick around long after one member leaves office. Ivanka Trump held a high-profile advisory role during her father's presidency. She was in countless meetings and global discussions. Even if she never planned to run for anything, her visibility alone was enough for us to make a joke about another Trump campaign. What keeps this prediction alive is how unpredictable American politics has gotten. People who were celebrities or business leaders sometimes jump into political roles without following traditional paths. We use that trend for satire, but it mirrors reality. As of now, Ivanka hasn't announced anything about 2028 or any future election. She stepped back from politics after leaving Washington and focused on private life. But stepping back doesn't erase public curiosity. Whether she ever runs or not, the joke keeps sparking debates. Some people treat it as another case of our show making an accurate prediction. Others see it as commentary on how quickly politics shifts, sometimes rewarding fame over experience. Either way, that sticker from our Halloween episode keeps showing up online whenever political discussions heat up. By 2026, the early stages of the 2028 election cycle will be starting. Rumors, positioning, trial balloons, they usually begin about 2 years before a presidential race. So if Ivanka ever intends to step back into public life, the window for that decision is approaching. The probability is uncertain, but the timing lines up with when speculation normally begins. The original joke was supposed to be lighthearted and exaggerated, but it remains one of the most discussed future references from our show. We didn't claim it would happen. We just highlighted how politics sometimes repeats itself. And honestly, after everything I've seen in politics over the years, nothing surprises me anymore. I've stopped trying to predict what's going to happen because reality keeps getting weirder than anything we write. Finally, we're ending on hover cars. This one's from way back in 1992 during an episode where I try to teach Bart a lesson by not letting him watch a movie. The story jumps decades into the future, showing old me and Bart finally going to see it. During a background shot, there's a person casually flying a hover car. A vehicle floating above the ground like wheels don't matter anymore. In the early 90s, this was pure science fiction. The kind of thing you saw in comic books and futuristic cartoons, but nowhere near reality. Hover cars appeared in magazines and motor shows as faraway dreams with no supporting technology. We used it as a visual shortcut to say, look how advanced the future is. Nobody watching expected it to match real progress. But today, that impossible vision feels less crazy. Engineers and transportation companies have spent years developing new travel methods that break away from traditional road vehicles. Electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, magnetic lift platforms, drone-based transport units, small personal flyers. They've all moved from lab experiments into early testing. They don't look like the cartoon version yet, but the underlying idea, a vehicle rising above pavement, is actively being developed. Some prototypes already lift off the ground using focused air pressure, rotating blades, or magnetic fields. Others try blending aircraft design with car-like controls so ordinary people could operate them safely. The main challenges aren't imagination. They're laws, safety systems, energy efficiency, and infrastructure. Cities aren't built to support sky-level traffic, landing platforms, or charging systems for airborne travel. Still, progress keeps moving. By 2026, we might not see hover cars at dealerships, but we could see advanced prototypes, early demonstrations, or pilot programs in certain regions. Governments and private companies are already studying how to regulate flying vehicles, which shows how seriously the concept is being taken. What makes our reference interesting is how casual it appears in the future world. The hover car isn't a luxury item or dramatic reveal. It's just part of daily life. That's the real dream behind hover vehicles. Transportation that frees people from congested roads and offers a new sense of movement. Our episode shows that moment as normal, effortless, and even a little funny. If engineers solve the remaining obstacles, hover-type travel might become as familiar as electric cars are now. It'll take time, planning, and countless tests. But the shift toward alternative transport is already happening. The cartoon scene wasn't predicting a specific model. It was hinting at a future where travel looks entirely different from what we know. So, there you have it. 10 predictions from our show that could realistically happen by 2026. Some seem wild, others feel possible, and a few look closer than we ever expected. Whether any of this actually comes true or stays as jokes, our show has this weird way of showing the world before it changes. I don't know how it works. Maybe the writers are time travelers. Maybe we're all just lucky guessers. Or maybe the future isn't as unpredictable as we think. As we are just getting started with 2026, Things are definitely getting interesting. Exciting for some people, worrying for others. Me? I'm just hoping there's still beer and donuts in the future. That's all I really care about. Everything else is just details. Now, if you'll excuse me, all this talk about the future made me tired. I'm gonna go take a nap and let someone else worry about what happens next. That's my strategy for life, and it's worked out okay so far. Well, mostly okay. Don't ask